Parallax scrolling. Along with playing animations on scroll, the use of parallax movement on scroll is another popular trick. In this lesson, we'll look into what parallax can do for our designs, and we'll use a handy JavaScript plugin called Relax to animate a long landing page with lots of elements scrolling at different speeds. To get started, open the Module 3 sample code file and look for folder 03 Start. A completed version of this lesson's code is in the folder 03 End. Parallax movement is when things move at different speeds relative to each other. It's a popular effect that can be used to create an illusion of depth. If we're moving, we see objects close to us move faster than objects further away. The technique is popular in many places, including video games, where it's usually seen in layered backgrounds. In this example, each of these boxes scrolls upward as I scroll down the page. The box in the middle, marked No Parallax, is scrolling at the same speed as the page. To its left is a box that scrolls faster, and the box on the right scrolls slower. In this example, I'm using a tool called Relax. The JavaScript utility Relax is a handy and quite simple plugin created by the design agency Dixon & Moe. It's lightweight and has no need for jQuery, and we can call it in from either local file or by using a CDN. Looking into the code, we find that it's using a very similar approach to our show-on-scroll code. It sets up a loop variable using requestAnimationFrame. And then in each iteration uses CSS to translate each object by a calculated offset. It's worth taking a look through how this was built if you'd like to see how a nice simple JavaScript utility can be written and shared. Let's use it to bring our page some parallax movement. To get started, we have a space-themed page taking us on a trip to the moon. Along the way, we'll pass a bunch of rocks. We can use Relax to have these elements scroll at different speeds. We begin by adding Relax to our page. In the index.html file, just before the closing body tag, add a reference to the script. We also put in some JavaScript to activate Relax. We pass the Relax method a string that will be used to identify the elements it'll need to animate. In this case, we're going to use the class Relax on our elements. With this in place, we can add the Relax class. Scrolling back up the HTML, we can look for each of the floating rocks elements. We add the Relax class to each, like so. With the class applied to each of the rocks, we can see the effect in the browser. So it's working. The rocks are scrolling at a slower speed than the text, but it's not right yet. All the rocks are moving at the same speed as each other. We'd like to have some sit in front of the text and some behind, so let's achieve this using some Relax settings. When working with Relax, we have two pieces of data we can pass in that will change the way the movement occurs. The first is speed. We can tell each image to scroll at a different speed. The value is an integer, where a negative number means it'll move more slowly than the normal scroll speed, and a positive number means it'll move at the same speed or faster. In our HTML, we again go to each of the images, but this time add a speed. It's written as a data attribute. Data Relax Speed. The first rock is a small one that sits in front, so we'll give it a fast speed of 8. The second one is far back, so we're going to have a speed of -2. The next one in front again, so we'll give it a positive value of 3. And the next rock is also far back, so we'll give it a speed of -3. Lastly, for the planet Earth, we'll set it far back into the scene with a speed of -4. There's one more thing: centering. When Relax calculates how far to move the elements, it does so based on the height of the page. This means that elements further down the page will have moved more than elements at the top as we scroll. By the time we've scrolled all the way down to the bottom of the page, they've been parallaxed off to somewhere we may not expect. We can get around this by using centering. This will adjust the element's position so that when we scroll to it, it'll still be visible on the page. We can either do this by adding a data relax percentage value to each of the rocks, or we can set this globally in our original JavaScript at the bottom of the page. In our JavaScript, we add an object to be passed into the relax method. And in it we specify center to be true. Back in our browser we can see the results. The rocks now float in front as well as far away behind the text. Before we finish up this example, let's also see how Relax can bring our header and footer elements to life. At the top of our HTML file, we have a header element containing an SVG logo and heading text. The SVG is inline so that we can apply Relax to each of the individual parts. That way on scroll, the logo will come apart as it scrolls away. We start with the two circle elements. Adding a class of Relax to each, we can specify speeds. These two are the furthest away, so we'll use negative values of -1 and -0.5 so that they move quite slowly. Next, we have some groups we can use to hook Relax onto. The first contains the large boulder. We'll use this containing group tag rather than the large boulder group, as there's already a transform on that group. Since Relax uses transforms, this would clash, so it's safest to use the container. We'll add the Relax class and give this a speed of 2. We then do the same for the medium boulder and the small boulder containers, giving them a speed of 1.5 and 1.25, so that they move a little slower than the large boulder. With that done, let's add parallax to the heading. There's a gradient on the header element at the bottom that makes it fade to black. It would be good if this logo was to scroll in behind that gradient. We can do this by giving the title a very slow scroll speed. Lastly, let's do the same with the header at the bottom of the page. Inside the footer element, we apply the same thing, but a speed of -2 to the heading. Let's see how this is looking. While this example uses CSS and JavaScript for the positioning of the elements on scroll, it's possible to create a parallax effect using pure CSS. There's a great write-up of this approach by Paul Lewis and Robert Flack that goes into more detail. It's a great approach, and it seems to perform well. You might want to look into this if you're looking for a way to create Parallax CSS without relying on JavaScript. In this lesson, we made use of a great JavaScript tool to create parallax movement on our page. Along the way, we saw how this tool uses CSS transforms to move elements on scroll, using a similar request animation frame approach we've used ourselves. We also learned how to use Relax with various speeds to create the illusion of depth on the page. Next up, we're going to take a look at how we can use animation for another interaction, when the visitor has finished scrolling and goes to leave the page.